Princess Yuna stood at the edge of the grand ballroom and watched the parade of noble suitors with tired eyes. The Eternal Dawn space station sparkled with 1,000 lights tonight. Diplomats and royals from across the galaxy had gathered for the annual Alliance Summit. Everyone wanted to impress her father, Emperor Te, ruler of the Celestial Empire. Another suitor approached her. He was tall with blue skin and 4 arms. His people controlled the mining operations in 3 star systems. He bowed low and presented a box made of pure crystal. "For you, princess," he said. "A gift from my world. Diamonds from the core of a dying star." Yuna smiled politely and accepted the gift. "Thank you. It is very beautiful." The suitor waited for more, but Yuna had already turned away. She had received 17 gifts tonight. Rare gems, ancient weapons, promises of warships and armies. Each suitor believed their gift would win her heart. None of them understood that she did not want things. She wanted something real. Her older brother, Prince Kang, appeared at her side. He was tall and strong, with the proud bearing of a warrior. "You should show more interest," he said quietly. "Father is watching." "I am showing interest," Yuna replied. I smiled. "You smiled like someone smells bad." Yuna almost laughed. "Some of them do smell bad." Prince Kang shook his head. "This is serious, Yuna. Your choice of partner will shape the future of our empire. You cannot keep rejecting everyone." "I am not rejecting them. I am waiting." "For what?" Yuna did not answer. She did not know how to explain. All her life, she had been surrounded by power and wealth. Everyone she met wanted something from her. They saw her title, her family name, her political value. Nobody saw her. Suddenly, the floor shook beneath their feet. The chandeliers swayed. Glasses fell from tables and shattered on the marble floor. What was that? Someone shouted. Alarms began to ring. Red lights flashed across the ballroom. Guards rushed in, their weapons drawn. "Explosion in the lower decks," a guard announced. "Everyone must evacuate to the safe zones." Chaos erupted. Nobles pushed and shoved, trying to reach the exits. Servants screamed. The beautiful party had become a scene of fear. Prince Kang grabbed Yuna's arm. "Come, we need to get you to safety." But Yuna pulled away. While everyone ran toward the upper levels, she slipped through a side door and headed down. "Princess." Captain Hana, the leader of the Imperial Guard, called after her. "Where are you going?" "To see what happened," Yuna called back. "It is too dangerous." But Yuna was already gone. She ran through empty corridors, following the smoke. The lower decks were where the workers lived. Engineers, cleaners, cooks. The people who kept the station running but were never invited to fancy parties. The smoke grew thicker. Yuna coughed and covered her mouth with her sleeve. She could hear alarms screaming and pipes hissing. Through a cracked window, she saw orange flames dancing in the darkness. Then she heard a voice. Come on, work with me." Yuna moved closer to the sound. She reached a doorway marked Reactor Control and looked inside. A man stood alone at a massive control panel. He was human. Yuna could tell by his appearance. Humans were a young species in the galaxy. They had only been traveling among the stars for 200 years. Most aliens considered them primitive and unimportant. This human was covered in sweat and soot. His hands moved quickly across the controls, pressing buttons and pulling levers. Sparks flew around him. A piece of burning metal fell from the ceiling and landed near his feet, but he did not run. "Okay, if I reroute power through the secondary grid and close the emergency valves," he muttered to himself. Yuna watched in silence. She could see the fear in his eyes, but he did not stop working. Other workers had fled. She had passed them in the corridors, running for their lives. But this man stayed. Why are you still here?" she asked. The man jumped in surprise. He turned and saw her standing in the doorway. His eyes went wide when he noticed her royal clothing. "Princess? What are you? You need to leave. The reactor could blow any second." "Then why are you not leaving?" "Because if this reactor explodes, it will take out half the station. Thousands of people will die." He turned back to the controls. "I cannot let that happen. Can you stop it?" "Maybe, if I can redirect the coolant flow," and a pipe burst above him, spraying hot steam. He cried out as the steam burned his arm, but he kept working. "Just need another minute." Yuna did not move. She watched as this human, this nobody, fought against impossible odds. His hands were burning. His body was failing. But his spirit refused to quit. Finally, the man pulled a large lever. The alarm stopped. The red lights turned green. The hissing of steam slowly faded. "Did it," he breathed. It actually worked. Then his legs gave out, and he collapsed to the floor. Yuna rushed forward and knelt beside him. His hands were badly burned. His face was pale from pain and exhaustion. But he was smiling. "Thousands of people," he whispered. "They are safe." Footsteps echoed in the corridor. Guards arrived, followed by Captain Hana. They looked at the scene in confusion. "What happened here?" a guard asked. "This man saved the station," Yuna said. "He stopped the reactor from exploding." The guards exchanged glances. One of them looked at the human with distaste. "Him? He's just a maintenance worker. He is a hero." But the guards were already calling for medical teams and filing reports. They helped the human onto a stretcher and carried him away. Nobody thanked him. Nobody asked his name. Yuna stood alone in the damaged control room. Smoke still hung in the air. She thought about all the noble suitors upstairs, with their diamonds and their warships. When danger came, they had run. This human, with nothing but his bare hands and his courage, had stayed. Captain Hana appeared at her side. "Princess, are you hurt?" "No." Yuna paused. "Captain, I need you to do something for me. Anything. Find out everything about that human. His name, his history, everything." Captain Hana raised an eyebrow but did not ask questions. "Yes, Princess." Yuna looked at the control panel where the human had stood. His blood was still on the buttons. He had burned his hands to save people who looked down on him. People who called his species primitive. "What is it about humans?" she whispered to herself. "What makes them so different?" She did not know the answer yet, but she intended to find out. Above her, the ballroom lights had come back on. The party would continue. Suitors would present more gifts. Her father would expect her to choose. But Princess Yuna had already seen something more valuable than all the diamonds in the galaxy. She had seen true courage, and she would not forget it. 3 days after the explosion, Captain Hana delivered a file to Princess Yuna's private chambers. It was thin. Humans did not have long histories in the galactic records. "His name is David Park," Captain Hana said. 28 years old. Born on a mining colony in the Outer Rim. No family, no wealth, no status. Yuna opened the file and looked at his picture. He had kind eyes, she noticed. Even in a simple identification photo, there was warmth in them. How did he become an engineer? He taught himself. The records show he worked in the mines as a child. When he was 15, he found broken data pads in the trash and learned to repair them. Then he learned to read. Then he studied every technical manual he could find. Yuna felt something stir in her chest. He taught himself? Yes, he applied for work on starships when he was 20. Most captains refused to hire humans. They said humans were too weak, too short-lived, too primitive. But David kept trying. Eventually, a cargo ship took him on as a cleaner. He worked his way up to engineer. And now he is here? He was transferred to the Eternal Dawn 6 months ago. He works in the lower maintenance crews. His supervisors say he is reliable and hardworking. Captain Hana paused. They also say he is strange. Strange how? He volunteers for dangerous jobs that others refuse. He stays late to finish repairs. He treats the station like it matters to him personally. Yuna closed the file. I want to meet him. Captain Hana's expression did not change, but Yuna knew her well enough to see the surprise. Princess, that would be unusual. A royal does not meet with maintenance workers. Then we will keep it secret. Arrange it. The first meeting happened in a small garden on the station's outer ring. It was late at night. The garden was empty except for artificial trees and the soft glow of simulated stars. David arrived with bandages still wrapped around his healing hands. He looked nervous. When he saw Yuna waiting on a bench, he stopped and bowed awkwardly. Princess, I do not understand why you wanted to see me. Please sit. Yuna gestured to the space beside her. I wanted to thank you properly. You saved many lives, including mine. David sat, keeping a respectful distance. I was just doing my job. Your job is to repair pipes and check systems. Your job is not to die fighting a reactor meltdown while everyone else runs away. David was quiet for a moment. Humans cannot run very fast. By the time I started running, I thought I might as well try to fix it instead. Despite herself, Yuna laughed. Is that a joke? A small one. David smiled. His whole face changed when he smiled. It became lighter, younger. Princess, I do not know why someone like you would waste time talking to someone like me. But I am grateful. Someone like me? A royal. Important. You could be anywhere in the galaxy right now. Why are you in a maintenance garden talking to a human? It was a fair question. Yuna was not entirely sure of the answer herself. Because I want to understand, she said finally. I have studied many species in the galaxy. I know their histories, their strengths, their weaknesses. But humans confuse me. We confuse everyone, David admitted, including ourselves. Your species is so young. 200 years ago, you were trapped on a single planet. You had no faster-than-light travel, no contact with other civilizations. And yet we spread anyway. David nodded. We could not help it. Humans always need to see what is over the next hill, even when the hill is a million light years away. But why? Other young species stay safe. They build slowly. They wait until they are ready. Humans just jump. David thought about this. Maybe because we do not live very long. 100 years, if we are lucky. We do not have time to wait until we are ready. We have to try now, fail now, learn now. Or we die before we ever get the chance. Yuna had not considered this. In her empire, some species live for thousands of years. They planned in centuries, not years. But humans had no time for slow plans. That sounds exhausting, she said. It is. But it is also exciting. Every day matters. Every choice counts. David looked at the artificial stars above them. When I was a boy in the mines, I used to look up at the real stars through a crack in the roof. I promised myself that someday I would touch them. And now I have. Not because I was smart or strong or special. Just because I refused to give up. They talked for hours that night. David told her about his childhood, about hunger and hard work and dreams that seemed impossible. Yuna told him about her life, about golden cages and endless expectations and a heart that longed for something real. They met again 3 nights later. Then again, and again. Each time, Yuna learned more about humans. She accessed the restricted archives and read about their history. She learned about their wars, their mistakes, their terrible capacity for destruction. But she also learned about their art, their music, their endless hope. "You have destroyed yourselves so many times," she said during one of their meetings. "Nuclear weapons, climate disasters, disease. Every time, the rest of the galaxy expected you to die out. Every time we surprised them," David said. "We are very stubborn. That is not a compliment. For humans it is." Yuna shook her head, but she was smiling. "You are a strange species, David Park. And you are a strange princess, Yuna. Most royals would have forgotten about me by now." She looked at him directly. "I cannot forget. You were willing to die for people who do not respect you. For people who call your kind primitive." "Why?" David's expression grew serious. "Because they were people. That is enough. Even though they would not have done the same for you, that does not matter. I do not help others because of what they would do for me. I help them because it is right. Because if I do not help, who will?" Yuna felt her heart beat faster. In all her years of meeting nobles and diplomats, she had never heard anyone speak like this. Power, wealth, status. These were the languages of her world. But David spoke a different language. A language of compassion and duty and quiet courage. She was beginning to fall for him. She knew it was dangerous. She knew it was impossible. A princess and a human maintenance worker. The galaxy would laugh, but the galaxy had been wrong about humans before. Unfortunately, secrets do not stay secret forever. One night, Prince Can came to Yuna's chambers with a cold expression on his face. "I know about your meetings," he said. Yuna's blood went cold. "I do not know what you mean. Do not lie to me, sister. My spies have seen everything. You have been meeting with that human. The one from the explosion. His name is David. His name does not matter. What matters is that you are a princess of the Celestial Empire. You cannot waste your time with creatures like him." Creatures? Humans are barely evolved. They live for a few decades, then they die. They have no power, no history, no value to our empire. What could you possibly see in him? Yuna stood up slowly. "I see courage. I see kindness. I see someone who cares about others, even when they do not care about him. Tell me, brother, how many nobles at the summit ran when the alarm sounded? How many of your powerful friends would have stayed to fight a reactor meltdown?" Prince Kang's face darkened. "Father will hear about this. Good. I will tell him myself." The next morning, Yuna stood before Emperor Tay in the throne room. She did not try to hide anything. She told her father about David, about their meetings, about everything she had learned. The emperor listened in silence. When Yuna finished, he stroked his beard thoughtfully. "You speak highly of this human," he said. "I do. Why?" "Because humans deserve respect. Not because of their power or their age, but because of who they are. They fight when others flee. They hope when others despair. They are stronger than anyone gives them credit for." Emperor Tay studied his daughter for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. "The selection ceremony is in 3 weeks. You will announce your choice of partner then. I expect you to make a wise decision." He did not forbid her from seeing David. He did not punish her. He simply watched her with ancient, knowing eyes. Yuna left the throne room with a decision forming in her heart. A decision that would change everything. The grand throne room had never looked more beautiful. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling like frozen waterfalls. Flowers from 100 different planets filled the air with sweet perfume. Thousands of guests filled the hall, dressed in their finest clothes. Everyone who mattered in the galaxy was here to witness Princess Yuna's partner selection ceremony. Yuna stood at the top of a golden staircase, wearing a gown of white silk that sparkled with tiny stars. Her hair was arranged in an elegant style that had taken servants 3 hours to complete. She looked like a perfect princess. Inside, Her heart was pounding like a drum. "Are you ready?" Captain Hannah asked softly from behind her. "No," Yuna whispered. "But that has never stopped me before." Emperor Tay sat on his throne at the center of the room. Prince Kang stood beside him, watching Yuna with suspicious eyes. He had not spoken to her since their argument. She knew he was waiting for her to make a fool of herself. She intended to do exactly that. "Let the ceremony begin." The royal announcer shouted. One by one, the suitors stepped forward to present themselves. There were 12 of them, representing the most powerful families in the galaxy. The first was a warrior prince from a planet of soldiers. He was tall and muscular, with scars on his face from many battles. "I offer my army of 10 million warriors," he declared. "With this alliance, no enemy could ever threaten your empire." Yuna nodded politely but said nothing. The second suitor was a lord from a species of brilliant scientists. His people had invented half the technology in the known galaxy. "I offer the secrets of our research," he said. "Knowledge that can advance your civilization by 1,000 years." Again, Yuna remained silent. Each suitor offered something grander than the last. Fleets of warships, control of trade routes, ancient artifacts of unimaginable power. The wealth of entire star systems laid at her feet. The crowd watched eagerly. This was the most important political event in decades. Whoever Yuna chose would gain enormous influence. The future of the galaxy could change based on her decision. Finally, the last suitor finished speaking. The announcer turned to Yuna. "Princess Yuna of the Celestial Empire, daughter of Emperor Tay, you have heard the offers. Who do you choose as your partner?" The room fell silent. Thousands of eyes turned to her. Yuna felt the weight of history pressing down on her shoulders. She took a deep breath. None of them. The silence shattered. Gasps echoed through the hall. The suitors looked at each other in confusion. Prince Kang stepped forward, his face red with anger. "What did you say?" he demanded. "I said none of them. I reject all 12 suitors." Yuna's voice was calm and clear. "They have offered me armies and knowledge and wealth. But I do not need these things. The Celestial Empire is already strong. What I need is something different." Emperor Tay leaned forward on his throne. "Explain yourself, daughter." "I have made a different choice. I choose David Park." The name meant nothing to most people in the room. They looked around in confusion. Who was David Park? "Bring him forward," Yuna commanded. The crowd parted. David walked through them slowly, still wearing his simple worker's uniform. He had not been given fancy clothes or proper preparation. He looked completely out of place among the lords and princes. When he reached the base of the staircase, he looked up at Yuna with surprise and wonder in his eyes. "Yuna, what are you doing?" he asked quietly. "I am choosing you." The crowd erupted. Nobles shouted in protest. The rejected suitors looked insulted and furious. Prince Kang pushed through the chaos to stand before the throne. "This is madness," he shouted. "Father, she wants to bond with a human, a maintenance worker. This is an insult to our entire bloodline." "He is correct," one of the rejected suitors called out. "Humans are a primitive species. They have no power, no standing, no worth. This choice makes your empire look weak." More voices joined in agreement. The beautiful ceremony had become a storm of anger and confusion. Through it all, Yuna stood still. She waited for the noise to fade. Then she spoke again. "You talk about power and standing and worth. You measure these things in armies and gold. But I have learned that true strength cannot be measured in these ways." She looked at David. This human saved thousands of lives. When the reactor was about to explode, when everyone else ran away, he stayed. He burned his hands trying to save people who do not even respect his kind. "That was luck," Prince Kang said coldly. "Any fool can get lucky once." It was not luck. It was courage. It was sacrifice. It was everything that our empire pretends to value but rarely sees. Yuna descended the stairs slowly, her gown trailing behind her. I have met many powerful people in my life. Warriors who could destroy planets. Scientists who could reshape reality. But I have never met anyone as strong as David Park. She reached the bottom of the stairs and stood beside him. He grew up in poverty. He had no teachers, no family, no advantages. He taught himself to read. He taught himself to build. He fought his way across the galaxy through nothing but determination. And when the moment came to show who he really was, he chose to sacrifice himself for others. Yuna turned to face the crowd. This is the partner I want. Not someone who offers me things, but someone who understands what it means to struggle. Someone who knows that strength is not about what you have, but about who you are. Silence fell over the throne room. Everyone waited for the Emperor's response. Emperor Te rose slowly from his throne. He walked down the steps until he stood before David. The human looked terrified, but held his ground. "You are David Park?" The Emperor asked. "Yes, Your Majesty. My daughter speaks highly of you. She says you are brave and noble. She says you are worthy of standing beside her." David swallowed hard. "I do not know if I am worthy, Your Majesty, but I know that I care about her, and I would do anything to protect her. Anything? Anything." Emperor Te studied him for a long moment. Then he turned to address the crowd. "My daughter has made an unusual choice. I will not pretend that I am happy about it. A princess bonding with a human was never part of my plans." He paused. "However, I am not a fool. I can see that my daughter has made up her mind. And I have learned that when Yuna decides something, no force in the galaxy can change it." A few nervous laughs rippled through the crowd. "Therefore, I propose a compromise." The Emperor raised his hand. "David Park will be given the chance to prove himself through the 3 imperial challenges. If he succeeds, he will have demonstrated that humans are worthy of respect, and the bonding will be approved. If he fails, Prince Kang interrupted eagerly. "Princess Yuna must choose a proper suitor." Emperor Te nodded. "Agreed." The crowd murmured in approval. This was a solution that satisfied everyone. Most people expected David to fail miserably. The 3 imperial challenges were legendary. Even powerful nobles from ancient species had died attempting them. "What say you, human?" the Emperor asked. "Do you accept this challenge?" David looked at Yuna. She could see the fear in his eyes. But she could also see something else. That same determination she had seen in the reactor control room. "What are the challenges?" he asked. "The trial of mind, the trial of body, the trial of spirit. Each will test you in ways you cannot imagine. Many have attempted them. Few have survived." David turned back to the Emperor. "I accept." A gasp went through the crowd. Prince Kang smiled cruelly. He was certain that this human would die in the first trial, but Yuna saw what others did not. She saw the fire in David's eyes, the quiet confidence of a man who had faced impossible odds before and won. She took his hand in front of the entire galaxy. "Thank you," she whispered. "Do not thank me yet." David replied with a small smile. "I have not done anything. You stayed. That is enough." The ceremony was over. The real test was about to begin. In 3 days, David would face challenges that had broken the greatest warriors in the galaxy. But he was human. And humans, as Yuna had learned, never knew when to quit. The first trial began at dawn. David stood at the entrance of a massive stone building called the Labyrinth of Wisdom. Yuna watched from a viewing platform high above, surrounded by nobles who whispered bets about how quickly he would fail. "The trial of mind," the judge announced. "Inside this labyrinth, you will face puzzles designed by the greatest minds in our empire's history. You have until sunset to reach the center. Many have entered. Only 6 have ever succeeded. David nodded. He wore simple clothes and carried nothing. The rules allowed no tools, no weapons, no help from outside. Begin, the judge said. David walked into the labyrinth. The doors closed behind him with a heavy boom. Inside, the walls shifted and changed. Symbols glowed on the stone surfaces. Each room presented a new puzzle, more complex than the last. Mathematical equations, logic problems, pattern recognition tests that had taken scholars years to solve. David stood in the first room and studied the symbols. He did not have years of advanced education like the other competitors. He had taught himself from broken data pads in a mining colony. But he had something else. He had spent his whole life finding solutions that others could not see. The first puzzle seemed impossible. Numbers and shapes arranged in patterns that made no sense. But David noticed something. The puzzle assumed that he would think like everyone else. It expected a certain approach. He tried something different. Instead of solving the puzzle directly, he looked for shortcuts. He found weak points in the walls. He discovered that some rooms connected in unexpected ways. He did not play by the rules because nobody had told him what the rules were. Room after room, David moved forward. He solved some puzzles correctly. Others, he simply went around. The labyrinth was designed for people who thought in straight lines. David thought in circles. When the sun was still high in the sky, David emerged from the center of the labyrinth. The judges stared in disbelief. He had finished faster than anyone in history. Impossible, Prince Kang hissed. He must have cheated. But the judges examined the records. Every step David took had been watched. He had not cheated. He had simply thought differently. Eunice smiled from her viewing platform. The nobles around her had stopped laughing. The second trial came 2 days later. David was transported to a death world called Venom's Edge. The planet had extreme temperatures, poisonous air, and predators that hunted anything that moved. Previous competitors had arrived with genetic enhancements and advanced survival technology. David arrived with basic human equipment, a simple suit, a water container, a knife. The trial of body, the judge announced through a communication device. You must survive on this planet for 10 days. If you are still alive when we return, you pass. The ship flew away. David was alone. The first night, the temperature dropped to deadly levels. David found a cave and built a fire using techniques humans had used for thousands of years. While competitors with better technology struggled with their malfunctioning equipment, David simply did what his ancestors had always done. He adapted. The predators came on the third day. Large creatures with poison in their claws and hunger in their eyes. Other competitors had fought them with weapons. David did not try to fight. Instead, he watched. He studied how the predators moved, what they ate, where they slept. He learned their patterns. On the 5th day, he approached the largest predator slowly, carefully. He offered it food he had gathered. He showed no fear, no aggression. The predator could have killed him instantly. But something strange happened. The creature studied David with intelligent eyes. It had never seen a prey animal act like this. Curious, it accepted the food. By the 8th day, David had formed a bond with the predator. It followed him through the jungle. It protected him from other dangers. The other competitors watched through their surveillance cameras in amazement. No one had ever tamed a creature of Venom's Edge. When the ship returned after 10 days, David was waiting calmly. His clothes were torn. His body was covered in cuts and bruises. But he was alive. How? The judge asked, genuinely curious. Humans have been making friends with dangerous animals for a very long time, David replied. We call them pets. Back on the station, the mood had changed. Nobles who had laughed at David now watched him with respect. 2 challenges completed. 1 remained. The trial spirit. This was the most mysterious challenge. It took place in a chamber called the Memory Vault, deep beneath the Imperial Palace. No one knew exactly what happened inside. Competitors who survived rarely spoke about it. Those who failed came out broken, their minds shattered. David entered the chamber alone. The door sealed behind him, and darkness surrounded him. Then the visions began. He saw human history played out before him. The wars, the cruelty, the endless violence. He watched humans kill each other over land, over resources, over ideas. He saw nuclear weapons destroying cities. He saw pollution choking the planet. He saw hate and fear spreading like disease. Why should humanity be allowed among the stars? A voice demanded. It seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. Your species brings only destruction. David fell to his knees. The weight of his people's sins pressed down on him. He wanted to argue, to defend humanity. But how could he? Everything the voice said was true. You are violent, the voice continued. You are selfish. You destroy everything you touch. What right do you have to join the ancient civilizations? David closed his eyes. The visions kept coming. More wars, more death, more proof of humanity's failures. But then he saw something else. Among all the darkness, small lights appeared. He saw a mother protecting her child during a bombing. He saw strangers helping each other after natural disasters. He saw scientists working together to cure diseases. He saw artists creating beauty in the middle of chaos. He saw ordinary people choosing kindness when hatred would have been easier. We are not perfect, David said, his voice shaking. We have made terrible mistakes. We have hurt each other and ourselves in ways that can never be forgiven. He opened his eyes and looked into the darkness. But we have also learned. Every time we fell, we got back up. Every time we destroyed, we rebuilt. We invented forgiveness and second chances. We created love and hope and dreams. He stood up slowly. Humanity is not defined by our worst moments. We are defined by how we respond to them. The vision shifted. Now he saw human music, human art, human kindness. He saw children laughing. He saw old enemies becoming friends. He saw the endless capacity of humans to change, to grow, to become better than they were. Other species look at our short lives and see weakness, David continued. But our short lives teach us that every moment is precious. We cannot wait for perfection. We have to try now, fail now, and try again. That is our strength. That is why we will never stop reaching for the stars. The darkness began to fade. The voice spoke one final time. You do not hide from your flaws. You do not pretend to be more than you are. You simply hope to be better than you were. Light filled the chamber. That is enough. David emerged from the memory vault changed. He did not speak about what he had seen inside. But everyone who looked at him knew that something profound had happened. 3 challenges. 3 victories. The impossible had become possible. But before David could celebrate, Prince Kang stepped forward. His face was twisted with rage. I invoke the ancient law of trial by combat, he announced. I will face this human myself. To protect the honor of our empire. Gasps filled the room. Trial by combat had not been invoked in centuries. It was a fight to submission or death. Kang, no. Yuna cried out, but the emperor raised his hand. The law is clear. If invoked, it must be honored. Prince Kang smiled coldly at David. Tomorrow, we fight, and everyone will see what humans truly are. David looked at Yuna. He saw fear in her eyes. Prince Kang was a legendary warrior who had trained for centuries. David was a human engineer who had never held a weapon in his life, but he had not come this far to quit now. "I accept," David said quietly. Tomorrow would decide everything. And for the first time since the trials began, David was truly afraid. The Imperial combat arena was filled with more people than it had held in 1,000 years. News of the trial by combat had spread across the galaxy. Ships arrived from distant star systems just to witness the event. Everyone wanted to see the human who had dared to love a princess. David stood in a small room beneath the arena, preparing for the fight. His hands were shaking. He had faced death before, but this was different. Prince Kang was not a reactor meltdown or hostile planet. He was a warrior who had spent centuries perfecting the art of killing. A knock came at the door. Yuna entered, her eyes red from crying. "You do not have to do this," she said. "I will renounce my claim. I will choose another suitor. Just please, do not die for me." David took her hands in his. "I am not doing this for you. I am doing this for every human who was ever told they were not good enough. For every person who was looked down upon because of where they came from." He smiled gently. "And yes, also for you. Kang will kill you. Maybe, but I will not run. Humans do not run." Yuna laughed through her tears. "You are the most stubborn creature I have ever met. Is that not why you love me?" She could not argue with that. The arena horn sounded. It was time. David walked through the tunnel and into the light. The crowd roared. Most of them were cheering for Prince Kang, eager to see the human put in his place. But David noticed something. Here and there, small groups were chanting his name. Humans from trade ships, workers from the lower decks, people who had never had a champion before. He lifted his hand to wave at them. The crowd fell silent. Prince Kang entered from the opposite side. He was enormous, his body enhanced by centuries of genetic modification and training. He wore traditional combat armor and carried a staff that glowed with energy. He looked like a god of war. David wore simple clothes. He had no weapons except a basic fighting staff, the only thing the rules allowed him. "Final chance," Kang called across the arena. "Surrender now, and I will make your death quick." "No, thank you," David replied. "I have plans for tomorrow." Kang's expression darkened. He had expected fear. He found defiance. The horn sounded again. The fight began. Kang attacked first. He moved faster than any human could follow. His staff swung toward David's head with enough force to shatter stone. David barely dodged. The weapon passed so close that it tore his shirt. He stumbled backward, trying to create distance, but Kang gave him no time. Attack after attack came. Left, right, high-low. Each strike was perfect, the result of centuries of practice. David blocked what he could and dodged what he could not. Within the first minute, David was bleeding from 3 different wounds. The crowd laughed. This was not a fight. It was an execution. Is this the best humanity can offer? Kang shouted, playing to the audience. A bleeding fool who cannot even land a single hit? David said nothing. He was breathing hard, his body screaming with pain. But he was watching, studying, learning. That was what humans did. They adapted. Kang attacked again. But this time, David noticed something. When Kang swung from the left, his right side opened for a split second. When he advanced, his footwork followed a predictable pattern. Centuries of training had made Kang perfect. But perfection could also be a prison. He fought the same way every time because that way had always worked. David started to move differently. He did not try to match Kang's power. Instead, he used the environment. He rolled under strikes and came up behind columns. He threw dust in Kang's eyes. He used tricks that no honorable warrior would ever consider. Stand still and fight. Kang roared in frustration. "Sorry," David called back. "Humans do not fight fair. We fight to win." The crowd had stopped laughing. David was still bleeding, still losing, but he refused to fall. Every time Kang knocked him down, he got back up. Every time he was wounded, he kept moving. Time passed. Minutes felt like hours. David's body was breaking down. He could feel bones cracking, muscles tearing. A normal person would have collapsed long ago, but David was not fighting for himself. He was fighting for every human child who would look up at the stars and dream of something more. He was fighting so that no one would ever call his species primitive again. Kang began to slow. Not from exhaustion. From confusion. He had never faced an opponent like this. His perfect techniques were designed to defeat warriors. David was not a warrior. David was something stranger. Something that simply refused to lose. "Why will you not fall?" Kang demanded, genuine frustration in his voice. Any other creature would have surrendered by now. David spat blood onto the arena floor. His vision was blurring. He had maybe 1 or 2 minutes before his body gave out completely. "Because," he gasped, "I am human, and we never know when to quit." He saw his chance. Kang was off balance, frustrated, not thinking clearly. David charged forward. Not to attack, but to get close. Kang swung his staff. David did not dodge. He let the weapon hit him in the ribs. He felt them break. The pain was incredible, but the impact also brought him inside Kang's guard. David grabbed Kang's arm. He twisted, using every technique he had learned from watching dockworkers fight in cheap bars. It was not elegant. It was not honorable. But it worked. Both of them crashed to the ground. David's broken ribs screamed in protest. But he held on. He wrapped his arms around Kang's neck, squeezing with everything he had left. Kang struggled. He was still stronger, still faster. But David had leverage. And David had something else. He had already accepted that he might die. That made him dangerous. Seconds passed. Kang's movements grew weaker. His face turned red, then purple. The crowd was completely silent. Then, just as Kang's eyes began to close, David let go. He rolled away, gasping for air. His entire body was one massive wound. But he did not finish the choke. He did not take Kang's life. Kang lay on the ground, coughing and confused. He looked up at David with shock in his eyes. "Why?" he managed to ask. "You had me. Why did you stop?" David forced himself to his feet. He took everything he had. "Because I am not here to kill you," he said. "I am here to prove that humans are worthy. And we do not prove that by being cruel. We prove it by being merciful." He extended his hand to Kang. The arena was completely still. No one breathed. No one moved. Kang looked at the offered hand for a long moment. David saw the conflict in his eyes. Pride demanded that he refuse. Duty demanded that he continue fighting. But something else was there too. Something that looked almost like respect. Slowly, Prince Kang reached up and took David's hand. "I yield," he said quietly. "The human has won." The arena exploded. Some people screamed in outrage. Others cheered with wild joy, but most simply stared in disbelief at the scene before them. A human had defeated a prince of the Celestial Empire. Not through superior strength, not through advanced technology, through sheer determination and an unexpected act of mercy. Emperor Tay rose from his throne. The crowd fell silent as he walked onto the arena floor. He looked at David, broken and bleeding but still standing. "You have passed all 3 trials," the Emperor said. "You have proven your mind, your body, and your spirit. And now you have shown something I did not expect. You have shown grace." He turned to address the crowd. "From this day forward, humans will be recognized as a species of interest to the Celestial Empire. They will be given full diplomatic status and treated with the respect they have earned. He looked back at David. And you, David Park, have my blessing to bond with my daughter. Una ran onto the arena floor. She did not care about proper behavior or royal dignity. She threw her arms around David and held him tight. You impossible, stubborn, beautiful human, she whispered. I told you, David said weakly. I had plans for tomorrow. Months later, news of what happened at the arena had spread across the galaxy. Humans were no longer the forgotten species on the edge of civilization. They were the species that had captured a princess's heart and earned an empire's respect. David and Una stood together on the observation deck of the Eternal Dawn. Through the window, they could see Earth's sun, a tiny yellow dot among a million stars. Are you ready for what comes next? Una asked. Politics? Ceremonies? People who will hate us for what we represent? David smiled. His wounds had healed, but the scars remained. He wore them proudly. I grew up in a mining colony with nothing but broken dreams and stubbornness. I taught myself to read, worked my way across the galaxy, and fell in love with a princess. He took her hand. Impossible challenges are kind of my thing. Una laughed and leaned against his shoulder. Somewhere across the galaxy, a human child looked up at the stars and heard the story of David Park, the story of a maintenance worker who became a champion, the story of a species that the galaxy had underestimated. The child smiled and began to dream, because that is what humans do. They dream impossible dreams, and then, against all odds, they make them real.